Namaste and hello. Welcome to yet another episode of The Light Within. Today we will be shining our light on one of the most important topics in these times. While you may have an awareness of the subject, but probably not in the way we are going to discuss today. We will be diving deep into the subject of consciousness. In simple words, consciousness means being truly awake. It not only resonates with spirituality but also touches every part of our existence. Have you ever wondered what it means to be truly conscious? Why do some people seem more awake than others? We will understand how is consciousness defined in Hinduism and Buddhism, and we will also understand the modern concept of seven-density consciousness. We will talk about why it is important for us to raise our levels of consciousness in today's fast-paced, technology-driven world. We'll also discuss what's holding us back from higher planes of awareness and how we can elevate ourselves not just for our own well-being but for the greater good of the collective. The way I've structured today's episode is by focusing on the why before the what. The reason I've done that is because I want you to really understand why raising your consciousness matters. Once you grasp the reasons, it'll be easier to apply and live out the knowledge we discuss. So let's talk about why it is important to get there in the first place. Why is it important for us to raise our consciousness? You can't really aim for those high levels of consciousness if you don't understand the reasons behind it. So from a personal perspective, the world today is a lot different from what it used to be. We are constantly bombarded by distractions, and over time, what's wrong or harmful has started to feel normal, while moral values have taken a hit. This has left us in an unfortunate place where even though there are still good things happening, the negatives far outweigh the positives. Most of us don't even realize that we are carrying this low energy, and it influences not only our decisions but also the future we are shaping for generations to come. Now let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture. Just think about all the unrest, conflicts, and wars happening around the world. Add to that the increasing number of natural disasters and how they're affecting people everywhere. When we see both the personal and global situations, the micro and macro perspectives, if we still don't strive to keep our consciousness in the higher state, we're not just harming ourselves, we are contributing to the collective suffering and the decline of values around the world. You and I both are part of this larger shared consciousness, and the role we play in it is more important than we might realize. So now let's talk about what is consciousness. Now that we have understood why it is important to raise our levels of consciousness, let's understand what exactly is consciousness. What are we really talking about? Consciousness is one of the terms that is difficult to define in a single sentence. It's broad, expansive, and deeply personal. But at its core, consciousness is our awareness. It's the lens through which we perceive the world, the self and the universe, people around us, everything. In its simplest form, it's our ability to be aware of our thoughts, emotions, and surroundings. But as we dig deeper, especially through the lens of Hindu and Buddhist philosophies, we see that consciousness is far more than just being awake in the physical sense. In Hinduism, consciousness is often equated with the Atma, the soul or inner self. The Atma is eternal and transcends the physical body, a small spark of the divine that connects us to the ultimate reality or Brahman, or the infinite cosmic consciousness, or the universe, whatever you want to call it. The goal of spiritual practice in Hinduism is to realize that Atma and Brahma are one, to realize that your individual consciousness is just a drop in the ocean of universal consciousness. In Hinduism, especially as per Advaita Vedanta, this is broken into different states of awareness or consciousness. First one being waking consciousness, where we experience the world around us. Second one is the dream consciousness, where our mind is active but our body is at rest. The third level of consciousness is the deep sleep consciousness, a state where the mind is at rest but awareness is still present. And then last state of consciousness is the turiya, or the fourth state, which is a state of pure consciousness beyond the waking, dreaming and deep sleep consciousness. To simplify this, I'll give you another philosophy, which is as per Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. Consciousness evolves through different stages, primarily focusing on the journey towards samadhi, which is union with the divine through a disciplined approach. Those who are aware of Patanjali Yoga Sutras, those who have even the basic awareness, would understand. I'm talking about the last 4 stages of consciousness as per Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Pratyahara, which is the withdrawal of senses. So the first stage of inner focus, where the attention is withdrawn from external stimuli, when we are not paying attention to the input that we are receiving through our senses, which is called Pratyahara. The second stage is Dharana, or concentration. It's about sustained focus on a single point of attention, like a breath or a chant, a mantra, etc. The third stage is dhyana, or meditation, which is a deepened, uninterrupted flow of concentration leading to a state of meditation. Now, in today's world, you find a very diluted version of meditation, but if you're really interested to explore what meditation means, then I would recommend that you find a guru or find the texts, the yogic texts, which have the exact definition and ways to lead you to meditation, not the YouTube videos where everybody and everyone is telling you ways to meditate on finding a life partner, finding a job, etc. Those are not meditations. I'm sorry to break this news to you, but meditation is not a 2 or 3 or 10 minute video or audio that you concentrate upon. Please find the right way, right place to learn more about meditation. The fourth state, as per Patanjali Yoga Sutra, and the final state is Samadhi. This is the final state of pure awareness, where the meditator and the object of meditation merge, transcending duality. Now, I know that the focus or the time that is required to explain the levels of consciousness in Advaita Vedanta, or as per Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, require much more detailing and much more time. The intent of this podcast is not to give you a detailed input around those philosophies, but just to tell you that they exist, so that you know where to look for, where to research more if you want to dive deep into these concepts. Well, I could have presented this information quickly. That's not my intention. Instead, my intention is to guide you on where to look if you want to deepen your understanding and elevate your consciousness. India has been blessed land where countless spiritual masters have walked, transcending duality and achieving the state of samadhi. The consciousness of yogis and great masters may seem abstract or textbook to us because most of us have never consciously experienced these higher states. While we unconsciously float between the lower densities of awareness, these masters transcended those levels with full awareness at will through intense sadhana, which also translates into spiritual practice and discipline, adherence to yogic principles. Masters like Sri Lahiri Mahasaya, my Guru Paramahansa Yogananda ji, Ramakrishna Paramahansa ji, Neem Karoli Baba and Sri Aurobindo, to name a few masters, were able to stay in a state of super consciousness or divine union. Their elevated states allowed them to perform what we call as miracles, healing, guiding souls, and transforming lives. The impact of their presence and teachings has stayed far beyond their physical lifetimes, which has also shaped the consciousness of the world. Even today, we continue to reap the benefits of their profound realizations, with their wisdom and practices still guiding a path to higher awareness for those who seek it. Buddhism, on the other hand, speaks of consciousness as being linked to different realms or planes of existence. These realms correspond to states of being, so from the lower realms of suffering to the higher realms of enlightenment. However, both the traditions, the Hindu and the Buddhist traditions, agree on one essential point, which is that we are not our thoughts or our bodies. We are something beyond, something deeper. Hence, consciousness is, in a sense, the pure awareness of that deeper truth. This also brings us to the modern spiritual framework that many of you might have heard of, the concept of 7-density consciousness. It's not something you'll find directly in an ancient Hindu or Buddhist text, but it builds on their teachings and has become popular in the New Age spiritual circles. So let me just throw some light upon that as well. The idea here is that consciousness evolves through different densities or levels of awareness. I think this will be simpler for you to understand. These densities represent different levels of spiritual evolution, from most basic primitive forms of life to highly evolved enlightened beings. Let me give you a quick breakdown of the 7-density consciousness model. First density is the level of basic elements like air, water, fire, and earth. It's pure existence without self-awareness. Think of it as the consciousness of probably minerals or rocks. Okay. The second density includes plants and animals. Here the consciousness is more aware but still instinctual. Plants grow towards sun and animals follow their survival instincts. So that's the second density consciousness for you. Third density consciousness is where we as humans are currently evolving. It's the realm of self-awareness and individuality. But here's the catch. This is where we often get stuck. We have free will, but we are limited by our egos, by fear, and by material attachments. Third density consciousness is where the human consciousness currently is. The fourth density consciousness is all about love, compassion, and unity. It's more collective consciousness where the barriers between me and you begin to dissolve, where the heart opens, and it's the consciousness of love and understanding. Think of it as beginning of unity, where we start to see others as part of ourselves. We keep moving between third and fourth density consciousness, but we are mostly at third density consciousness. The fifth density consciousness is where wisdom comes into play. So it's about deep understanding and insight, blending love with wisdom to form a more balanced and enlightened way of being. It's the plane of wisdom and light, and here beings are highly spiritual and guided by a higher intellect as well. The sixth density consciousness is where love and wisdom are perfectly integrated and the individuals become one with the higher consciousness. Beings in this density are incredibly enlightened and exist primarily to serve others. Love and wisdom merge fully, and there is a deep sense of oneness. The seventh density consciousness is the level of pure unity and transcendence, where individual identity merges. So there are no individuals there. It is the final stage before reuniting with the source, often called as the gateway to infinity. It's pure awareness transcending all individuality. Now, whichever philosophy you resonate with, the goal is to move up these densities, evolving our consciousness from basic survival instincts of the first and second level densities to unity and pure awareness of the higher densities. I know that this sounds very textbookish, but in day-to-day life, I'm just going to explain it further, that how do you apply this knowledge in your day-to-day interactions. Now let's talk about the state of our current consciousness. As I mentioned earlier, that most of us are stuck in third density consciousness. This is where the struggle comes in. We live in a world dominated by fear, competition, materialism, and separation. I don't need to tell you this, and I think now you will be able to understand the complex concepts that I have explained earlier. Many of us are disconnected from the natural world, from our own inner worlds, and from each other. Isn't it true? Technology has brought incredible advancements, but it's also deepened our sense of disconnection. Don't get me wrong. Technology is a tool. It can help us expand our knowledge, connect with others, and share our wisdom. The only reason I'm able to share all of this is because of technology. But if we are not mindful, technology also can become a trap for us. So let's think about social media, for example, the easiest example, right? It often encourages comparison, judgment, and a constant need for validation instead of using it as a tool for enlightenment or raising our level of consciousness. It leads us feeding our egos and keeping us in the loop of superficiality. We compare ourselves to others, chase likes and followers, and in the process, we drift further away from our true selves. We are often glued to our screens, consuming endless streams of information, and I don't need to tell you what you're being served with in the name of entertainment. If you are interested in your welfare, you need to really pay attention to what you're consuming in terms of your digital diet. The constant notifications, emails, and updates put our minds in a state of perpetual alertness. It is difficult to find peace in a world that never stops. We are constantly pulled in multiple directions, whether by social media, news, or our own busy life. In this state, we lose touch with our high purpose, with the deeper meaning of our existence. Instead of evolving towards love, understanding, and unity, we get caught up in ego, competition, and fear. Let me ask you, how many times you have felt overwhelmed, anxious, or isolated in today's world? That's a sign of consciousness that is not at peace, a consciousness that is stuck in lower planes. This is the reason why raising our consciousness is not just important, it is a non-negotiable. Our planet Earth is primarily in the third density. There are forces which are pulling it down to remain in the third density. There are also people and communities which are trying to spread love and harmony. Because of this push and pull, our planet is undergoing significant changes, moving towards fourth density consciousness as more individuals are awakening and striving for unity, love, and higher awareness. However, because of the wars, the conflicts which have actually increased in last few years, primarily our consciousness remains in the third density consciousness. So what keeps us in these lower planes of consciousness? I think with the explanation you already know them, but still let's understand and contextualize this from a day-to-day lens. The first one on my list is fear. In any given moment, we are either operating from fear or love. Pay attention. When you are at work and you have a deadline, are you loving what you're doing, or are you worrying about what might happen if you fail? If it is the latter, it is the lower state of consciousness. Fear keeps us trapped in survival mode, blocking us from higher awareness and achieving our true potential. Applying this understanding to your day-to-day life, if you're afraid of losing someone, you're operating from fear. If you're judging others, you're operating from fear. Essentially, fear keeps you stuck in lower states of consciousness. Now, the next on my list is ego.
The ego is our sense of individual identity. While it serves a purpose, it also keeps us attached to material things, status, and personal success. The ego often separates us from others and literally blinds us to the interconnectedness of all life. The sense of I, me, myself, sense of competitiveness, and inability to appreciate others' success, constant competition to look better, have more at the cost of relationships, all that stems from ego. It is a lower state of consciousness which pulls us away from deeper connections. The third on my list is attachment. In my understanding, attachment is when you think that you are the doer and you refuse to let go. Whether it's attachment to material possessions, relationships, or even your own beliefs, attachment binds us to the earthly plane. And remember what I said, earth is operating in the third density consciousness. When we are overly attached, we lose our sense of flow and harmony with the universe. We are not open to what universe has to offer to us. You have to remember, you have to constantly remind yourself that we are not the doers. Keeping that in mind can help us lighten our load. The fourth on my list is distraction. As we discussed earlier, distraction in modern life is one of the biggest obstacle to raising our consciousness. We need time for introspection, meditation, and spiritual practice, but we are very busy, which keeps us in the lower planes of consciousness. Now that we have understood what keeps us in lower planes of consciousness, especially in context of our day-to-day life, let's also understand how to raise our consciousness. We have the power to raise our consciousness to evolve beyond fear, ego, attachment, and distractions. But it requires intentional practice. If you search online, you will find tons of ways to raise your consciousness. But the truth is that it doesn't matter how many techniques you read about if you don't actually practice them. Instead of giving you a long list of methods, I want to share what has worked for me. And I promise you, if you consciously practice these steps, you will not only feel lighter, your energy will attract people and you'll start clearing obstacles on your path. Remember, for now, focus on yourself because you are the world. If you correct your own consciousness, the rest will take care of itself. With so many benefits, it's definitely worth a try. The first one on my list is mind your own business. Now, this should not be confused with being selfish. It means to pay conscious attention to what you are doing and how your actions are impacting others. Refuse to be a part of gossip gangs. Refuse to do things only to fit in or to win approvals from others. Refuse to compete with others. Compete only with yourself. Be better. Do better than what you did yesterday. Be mindful of your reactions. There are so many on my list. If you could do only these, it'll make a huge, huge difference to your energy and levels of consciousness. Your only business should be to correct yourself. So mind your own business. Let people mind theirs. The second one on my list to raise your consciousness is to practice being in the present. I think the biggest hurdle to raising consciousness is our fascination with our past. We love being miserable and we are not even aware that we have started enjoying our miserable state. I know that this sounds rude, but this is the reality. One of our biggest obstacles to raising our consciousness is getting stuck in the past. We often cling to our misery without even realizing it. Many people play the victim, thinking, this happened to me, or I was so unlucky. While these feelings are valid, it's important to process them and then just move on. We don't know how much life we have left. So why not make the most of it by focusing on the present instead of dwelling on what didn't work out? Life is a mix of good and bad, and all of it is subjective. Try to pull your awareness into the present by letting go of the past regrets, and you'll naturally raise your consciousness to a higher level. The last one on my list is heart-centered living. Much of our grief comes from relationships. If there's anything that I can suggest to ease those troubles, it will be to start living from your heart rather than your mind. This means cultivating compassion, empathy, and understanding for others. The more love you give, the more you align with the higher consciousness. And this is applicable in all situations, even at work. Try coaching someone rather than reprimanding and see the difference in the results. This may sound difficult in the day and age, but trust me, you will get a hang of it. Ego and mind will pull you in the direction of creating separateness. However, if you respond from your heart, you will not only ease the situation for yourself and other person, but also prevent the future occurrences. Heart-based living doesn't just raises individual consciousness, but also collective consciousness. I think if you follow only these three, it is enough. No point bombarding you with cliche recommendations. Remember that you will have to remind yourself again and again and again. It is a matter of practice, but once it becomes your default, you will notice the changes in your life you would have not even imagined. Now, as we bring today's episode to a close, let's remember that raising consciousness is not a one-time event. It's a lifelong journey. The state of the world might challenge us, technology might distract us, but the light within us is always there waiting to be awakened. The beauty of this journey is that when we raise our own consciousness, we help uplift the consciousness of the world around us. We are all interconnected, all part of the same cosmic world. So, my dear listeners, let's commit to this path of growth, evolution, and higher awareness. Let's raise our consciousness one step, one breath, one moment at a time. So, this brings me to the conclusion, to the end of this episode. I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation with you. May your soul be illuminated with the light within. I will see you in the next episode of The Light Within.